Looks like we have a few people who are joining us. We're going to get started in just a moment.
Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining us for DHEC's virtual public meeting. My name is Donna Moy and I am the Public Participation Coordinator for DHEC's Bureau of Land and Waste Management. I will be serving as the technology host for tonight's virtual meeting, and I will also be assisting during the question and answer session following the presentation. There are also others on our tech team who will be assisting tonight. I will ask them to introduce themselves now.
Good evening, I'm Christy Illenberg.
Good evening, everyone. This is Catherine Yan.
Thanks so much. In just a few minutes, you'll be introduced to other DHEC staff who will be participating in tonight's virtual meeting. Again, if you or someone you know is having trouble joining the meeting online or using the Microsoft Teams app, you can join the meeting by calling in with your telephone. The call-in number and access code are in the email that was sent to all who registered. They are also on the webpage at www.scdhec.gov/AVX, and they should be on your screen right now. Please note that the phone number you use to join the meeting will be displayed on the attendee list for all to see. We recognize this meeting format and technology is new to many people, so we appreciate your patience and understanding as we work through any technical issues that may arise. For those of you joining us online, we encourage you to close other applications running on your computer and turn off other streaming services or devices at your location for the duration of the virtual meeting. All lines have been muted in order to minimize background noise and echoing so that everyone can hear the presenters. After the presentation, we will unmute lines and provide an opportunity for you to ask questions of our DHEC staff. DHEC is using this technology to provide opportunities for continued public participation in our decision-making processes while we do our part to reduce the spread of coronavirus. We do want to hear from all who are interested. As the state's public health agency, we must make public health and safety a priority. We encourage you to help stop the spread of COVID by wearing a mask and maintaining at least 6 feet distance from others while out in public, staying home when you are sick, and getting vaccinated when it's your turn. Most importantly, stay up to date and stay informed of COVID-19 by visiting our websites. You could go to scdhec.gov/COVID-19 or scdhec.gov/vaxfacts. That's VAXFACTS, and those are on your screen now. Your participation is so important to us, so we have gone to extensive efforts to ensure that anyone who is interested in engaging with us has the ability to do so. We are continuing to evaluate the tools and accommodations, and we welcome your input on how we may be able to improve your experience with virtual participation. This virtual hearing is being recorded, and the recording will be placed on our webpage within the next few days. Prior to this meeting, the presentation that you will see tonight was also posted on that webpage. Sally Williams will be serving as your meeting host tonight. And Sally, if you're ready, I think we can go ahead and get started.
We are. Thank you, Donna. Good evening. Thank you all for attending our virtual public meeting relating to AVX Corporation Myrtle Beach site located at 801 17th Avenue South, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I am Sally Williams, and I work in the State Remediation Section of DHEC's Bureau of Land and Waste Management. I assisted with the mail-out to many of you and arranged for the publication of the announcement of the public meeting in the Myrtle Beach newspaper, the Sun News, on April 11th. Tonight, the South Carolina Department of Health and Environmental Control is available for several purposes. First, the department would like to provide an update on information regarding the AVX Myrtle Beach site And second, the department will discuss alternatives for cleaning up the soil and groundwater contamination in the area that the department identifies as operable Unit 1. Third, and more specifically, to provide information on the cleanup alternative to which DHEC believes is the best alternative based on available information. And finally, to obtain comments and answer any questions you may have about these alternatives. We have several DHEC representatives here tonight to guide us through the information and documents. First, we have Carol Crooks. She is the project manager and is also with the state remediation section. Ms. Crooks has reviewed all the documents relating to the soil and groundwater contamination and will shortly be presenting the department's information to you after these introductions. We also have Gary Stewart. He is the manager of the state remediation section of DHEC's Bureau of Land and Waste Management. We're also pleased to have joining us tonight Matt Maxwell and Catherine Mann. They are part of our Region 6 office, which serves the Myrtle Beach area. Before Ms. Crooks makes her presentation regarding the department's proposed plan of cleanup for operable Unit 1, I would like to cover a few items. First, many of the documents that Ms. Crooks may refer to in her presentation are available to you at the site's information repository, which is housed at the Horry County Memorial Library's Socastee branch and maintained in the reference department. The administrative record includes, but is not limited to, documents that the state remediation section relied upon in making its technical decisions for the site. The administrative record has recently been updated. You may review the documents at the library and obtain copies of any documents from the library if you so choose. The department also has the administrative record as part of its site file in our Columbia office. This can be viewed in Columbia with a Freedom of Information request. Second, a court reporter is attending tonight and will later provide the department with a transcript of the meeting. The transcript will allow the department to verify that we responded to all questions or comments you may make at the end of the presentation. The department is required to have the meeting transcribed. You will have until May 15th, 2021 to provide written comments on the alternatives and the proposed plan. You may address your comments to Ms. Crooks, and we have her contact information at the end of the presentation. Following Ms. Crooks' presentation, the department will have a time of discussion to respond to your comments or answer any of your questions. Again, thank you for attending this evening. Now I'll turn it over to Ms. Crooks.
Okay, thank you, Sally. And good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I have to admit this is my first virtual public meeting, but we've got a great support team, and they've done this before, so I think we'll be fine. I'll just give you a little background on myself. I've been the project manager for this site since 2005, and I think there's been a lot of progress at the site since 2005. The plan that I'll be discussing tonight should begin the final phase of cleanup at this site, and I think that's very exciting. The remedy I presented in 2011 for operable Unit 2, or the off-site groundwater contamination, has been very beneficial and is functioning as expected at the site. The concentration of contaminants in groundwater have reduced significantly, and routine monitoring continues in that area. The PowerPoint presentation that I'll present tonight is really a summary of the department's proposed plan. I think everybody has a copy of the PowerPoint. I know it was sent by email today. If you don't, it is on the DHEC website. So this meeting is a requirement in the regulatory process that we follow, and it allows the public to provide input on our remedy selection. It is part of our criteria we must meet. It's called community acceptance, and we'll get into that a little more later. And as Sally said, there's a 30-day comment period, so I won't repeat all the things that you've already heard and we'll probably hear again. But I will personally respond to the comments, and you are free to call me, email me, or send me a letter, and I look forward to hearing from you. So I am ready to begin our PowerPoint presentation. I'm going to admit it's not up on the screen where we are, so I hope it's up for everyone else. But I do have a copy on paper in front of me, so I guess I will go ahead and proceed with my paper copy. So, first slide, the proposed planned public meeting. I've just got an agenda for the meeting, and we've already done the introduction, so good news. We're on to site history. And then we'll talk about the feasibility study and
Hey,
the remedial
Carol?
action of, yes.
This is Donna. I just wanted to type in, it sounds like you're having a little bit of technical issues there. We are seeing the presentation on our screen, so there's no worries as far as the people who are with us tonight being able to see it. And as you progress, if y'all can't see the screen, if you'll just say when to flip the next slide, then we'll be glad to take it from this angle.
I will do that. So obviously I'm on the first slide that says proposed planned public meeting, operable unit 1.
Okay.
And again, I'll pick up where I was. We will be discussing feasibility study and our remedial action objectives. Then we will move on to remedial alternatives discussion, the department's preferred remedy, and then on to comments and questions. I'm going to the next slide. I'm going to start with the site history, like I said. So I've got 3 slides on history. It'll be the older history is first. AVX began operations at the Myrtle Beach location in 1953. They used chlorinated solvents in the manufacture of ceramic capacitors until 1993. In 1981, AVX began assessment and remediation of contaminated soil and groundwater without the department's knowledge. In June of 95, AVX notified DHEC of that contamination, and the department issued a consent order in 1996. Since that time, a number of soil and groundwater samples have been collected on the facility property in the remedial investigation process. And I'm going to the next slide. This slide is a figure that just shows the locations of what we refer to as operable unit 1 and operable unit 2, and we'll be discussing these in more depth later. I'll give you a brief reasoning for the operable units at this site right now, though. When we discussed we found or discovered the off-site groundwater contamination, we intended addressing the site as a whole for proceeding with a feasibility study and choosing a remedy. But when we sat down with AVX and their consultant, Arcadis, back, I believe it's in 2010, we were told that a number of buildings would be removed from the facility property, and it became clear that that would allow us access for a lot of sampling that we would not have had otherwise, and we did not want to hold up proceeding with operable unit 2. So we divided these into operable units so that we could address OU2 immediately and then wait on the opportunity to sample within OU1 that would benefit our understanding the extent of contamination there before we proceeded. And now I will move on to I don't think I discussed the figure, I'm sorry. So the green arrow shows operable unit 1, that is the facility property, and the blue arrow shows operable unit 2, the off-site groundwater contamination. Now I'm moving to the next slide. Site history. So this is more recent site history, but it is in reference to operable unit 2, or the off-property groundwater contamination. In August 2006, off-property groundwater contamination was discovered. DHEC required an investigation to determine the full extent of the contamination beyond the facility property. Groundwater, surface water, and soil gas samples were collected, defining the extent of that off-site contamination. In 2010, the site was divided into operable unit 1, operable unit 2, as I explained a few minutes ago, to expedite that process of remediation off property. The proposed plan for OU2 was completed in 2011, and a record of decision was written in 2012. The groundwater treatment remedy for OU2 has been implemented, and it is progressing successfully. More recent history, so on to the next slide. So site history, most recent, this is in regard to OU1, which is what I'm discussing tonight. Since 2010, a number of buildings have been removed from the facility property. Soil sampling was conducted during building demo, and limited soil removal was completed when needed during that process. Groundwater extraction wells have continued to control groundwater migration from the facility property. And in 2016, a feasibility investigation was conducted to fill data gaps on the facility property. In 2019, a feasibility study report was completed to evaluate potential cleanup alternatives. I'm going to the next slide. This is a figure that we pulled off of Google Earth. It is a picture of the facility in 2010, and hopefully you can see it well. There were a lot of buildings in 2010, a lot of big buildings. Now, if you go on to the next slide, 2020, there aren't very many buildings left on this site. Most of them have been removed. It's mostly just grass and vegetation. There's, I think, one building, maybe one building and a smaller building left on the property at this point. There is no more manufacturing on this particular portion of the AVX property. So it is cleared and perfect for us to move on to remediation. Next slide. The feasibility investigation at OU1. This was a very comprehensive investigation. It was conducted to fill the data gaps that existed within OU1. The demolition of multiple buildings in 2014 and 2015 provided access to conduct sampling in areas previously inaccessible, as I already explained. It included characterization of source areas and testing to evaluate potential treatment options. This detailed investigation provided a clear understanding of viable options for remediation of soil and groundwater. Next slide. After this investigation was complete, we had all the information we needed to proceed with the feasibility study. The important aspects that a feasibility study provides moving forward in remedy selection are determining what the remedial action objectives are and establishing what the constituents of concern are at a site. We have to know what the remedial action objectives are before we choose a remedy, so we know what it is we're trying to accomplish and therefore what remedy might be able to accomplish those objectives. The feasibility study also looks at the alternatives and does a screening process to determine which of the alternatives will carry through and could potentially be successful at a site. I'm going to go to the next slide. So from the feasibility study, we established that our constituents of concern, or just our contaminants of concern at this site, are all volatile organic compounds. The primary contaminant of concern is trichloroethene, TCE, and its breakdown products associated with this chemical. And this was the solvent or the volatile that was used prior to 1993, used in a lot of manufacturing facilities for equipment cleaning and various purposes of just degreasing. So very common contaminant at many sites. Next slide. Remedial action objectives for the development and evaluation of alternatives. So basically this is what must the remedy be able to accomplish? And that this is what our objectives were. Eliminate site-related COCs from soils that may be leaching into groundwater. Restore the groundwater aquifer by reducing the contaminants of concern to below federal maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs, for drinking water. And prevent the ingestion and dermal contact with groundwater containing COCs above drinking water standards and minimize the potential for COCs to migrate off-site. Next slide. Okay, this is a busy slide, and we'll spend a little bit of time on it. It's a table that summarizes all the soil and groundwater cleanup alternatives that were considered in our FS for Operable Unit 1. And these were all considered to be suitable to accomplish our remedial action objectives. So we start with the first alternative, which is no action. And no, we did not think this would meet our remedial action objectives. It is just required in an FS as a frame of reference for evaluating alternatives. So you'll see it in every FS. But to go through it, it's required, as I said, by the National Contingency Plan. There would be no action for source area soils or groundwater, no monitoring or land use controls, and of course the net present value cost would be zero because we would be doing nothing. Alternative 2. Now we get into the real alternatives that we're evaluating and looking at as feasible for this site. This would be excavation and enhanced reductive chlorination. So this would be the physical removal of source area soil and off-site disposal. It would include injection of organic substance to stimulate the natural degradation of contaminants in groundwater, and monitored natural attenuation and institutional controls. Now, institutional controls are just limiting exposure through something like a deed restriction or fencing, something of that nature, so that you limit exposure. The expected duration would be 15 years, and that breaks down to 5 active and 10 of monitoring. The net present value cost would be $5,009,611. We move to number 3, excavation and pump and treat of groundwater. This would involve, again, the physical removal of source area soils and off-site disposal, and the use of groundwater extraction and treatment for the remediation of groundwater. It would include monitored natural attenuation and institutional controls. Expected duration would be 30 years of active and monitoring in this remedy. The net present cost would be $2,777,047. Alternative 4, excavation and groundwater recirculation. This again would involve the physical removal of source area soils and off-site disposal. It would have groundwater extraction and treatment with re-injection of treated water into the subsurface. There would be monitored natural attenuation and institutional controls also in this remedy. Expected duration would be 30 years, 20 active and 10 monitoring. The net present value cost would be $4,640,170. Alternative 5, in situ thermal treatment and enhanced reductive chlorination. This would include the destruction of contaminants in the source area, soils, and groundwater using thermal heating. Treatment of contaminants in the down gradient groundwater plume by the use of enhanced reductive chlorination. Monitored natural attenuation and institutional controls also would be included in this remedy. The expected duration of this remedy would be 15 years, 5 active and 10 monitoring. Net present value cost, $13,197,583. The last remedy, in situ thermal treatment and groundwater recirculation. This would include the destruction of contaminants of concern in the source area, soils and groundwater using thermal heating, and the treatment of the down gradient plume by groundwater extraction, treatment, and re-injection. Monitored natural attenuation and institutional controls, also part of the remedy. Expected duration, 30 years, 20 active and 10 monitoring. Net present value cost, $13,841,112. So I'll go on to the next slide. And so the purpose of us being here tonight is to discuss our proposed plan. The department creates a proposed plan to document the alternative we believe would be the best fit for a site. And it is used to meet the community acceptance or community input part of our criteria that we have to look at for a remedy. So anyway, this document is used to involve the public in the remedy selection process. It presents DHEC's recommended remedy, presents alternatives that were evaluated, and explains the reasons for the preferred alternative. The proposed plan can be found on the DHEC website. And after all public comments have been considered, the department will issue a record of decision for this site. I don't know if I need to tell you, we seem to have the slide up. No, okay, I'm going to the next slide. This is in regard to the evaluation criteria that is used for looking at alternatives and comparing them to one another to determine which remedy is going to fall out as the best. This was developed by EPA for Superfund sites in the evaluation of remedial alternatives. The first set of criteria is threshold criteria. Any remedy must meet these two criteria. If they don't, then they don't follow through to the other criteria, if you're looking at it as a flow chart. So these are overall protection of human health and the environment in compliance with state and federal regulations. The balancing criteria, the next set of criteria that you would compare your alternatives to: long-term effectiveness and permanence, reduction of toxicity, mobility, or volume through treatment, short-term effectiveness, implementability, cost, and finally, what we're doing tonight, community acceptance. So now, what I'll have to do is go through each of the, I'm going to the next slide. I'll go through each of the criteria now and discuss our alternatives to kind of show the process that we use to determine which alternative would fall out as most suitable for this site. So we start with this threshold criteria, overall protection of human health and the environment. Well, alternative one, no action, offers no protection to human health and the environment. So apparently, this does not meet this criteria at all. Alternatives 2 through 6 would be protective of human health and the environment, so therefore they meet the criteria and would follow through. Compliance with state and federal regulations. Next slide. All alternatives except one would comply with state and federal regulations. All appropriate permits for alternative 2 through 6 could be obtained during the design phase of the remedy. So all active remedies pass this threshold criteria. So we're moving on to balancing criteria now. First would be, and again, this is in this slide, long-term effectiveness. This factor considers the ability of an alternative to maintain protection of human health and the environment over time. Alternative 1 would not be effective or permanent. That's the no action. Alternatives 2 through 6, all other active remedies, would be highly effective and permanent in the removal of source area soils. Alternatives 2 and 5 would likely achieve our remedial action goals for groundwater in significantly less time than 3, 4, and 6, because 2 and 5 are estimated to take 15 years, where 3 and 4 are estimated to take 30 years. Next slide. Reduction of mobility, toxicity, or volume through treatment. This factor evaluates an alternative's use of treatment to reduce the harmful effects of contaminants. Alternative 1 provides no treatment to reduce contaminants and no monitoring to determine if natural attenuation is occurring. Alternatives 2 through 6, again, all active remedies, would work well to reduce the massive contamination in the soil. Alternatives 2 and 5, using enhanced reductive dechlorination, would reduce mobility, toxicity, and volume of contaminants in groundwater in a relatively short time compared to alternatives 3, 4, and 6. Again, 15 years versus 30 years. Next slide. Short-term effectiveness. Short-term effectiveness addresses potential human health and environmental risk associated with the alternative during the construction and implementation phase. So alternative 1 would involve no activities and therefore no construction or short-term exposure risk to human health or the environment because you're doing nothing. All other active remedies could present minimal short-term risk. However, alternatives 2, 3, and 5 have components that have been previously implemented within OU1 or OU2 with no harm to human health or the environment. So we know that those, we've done it before and we had no problems. The indications would be we could do this again without problems. Next slide.
Hey, Carol.
Yes.
This is Donna. I'm sorry. I just want to interrupt you just a moment. We want to make sure that we are on the right slide for what you were speaking of. So what we are seeing right now is short-term effectiveness, and I think that's the slide you just covered. Is that correct?
That's the one I just finished. Yeah,
okay,
so you're going to implementability.
Okay, all right. We got you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the analysis of implementability considers the technical and administrative feasibility of remedy implementation and the availability of required materials and services. So alternative 1 can easily be implemented because there are no technical or administrative components requiring action. Alternatives 2, 3, and 4 are all technically and administratively feasible. ERD and pump and treat systems have already been utilized at this site. Alternatives 5 and 6, using thermal systems, have been effective at other sites in the state, but we've not used them at this site. It would be a new remedy at this site. I'm moving to the next slide, which is cost. The cost analysis evaluated capital costs and annual operation and maintenance costs, or O&M. So the total present value cost is the sum of initial capital costs and O&M costs over the lifespan of the loan. So basically, just to put that in a nutshell, is how much would the remedy cost start to finish? Alternative 1, no action would cost nothing. Alternative 2 is $5,009,611. Alternative 3, $2,007,007. Sorry, $2,007,070. Dadgummit. I've said this like I don't know how many times today. $2,777,047. Alternative 4, $4,064,170. Alternative 5, $13,197,583. And alternative 6, $13,841,112. And the high cost associated with 5 and 6 really have to do with the thermal. It is a very expensive alternative. And moving to the next slide. The department's preferred remedy is alternative 2, excavation and enhanced reductive dechlorination. This would be the physical removal of source areas. So this alternative includes the physical removal of source area soils containing contaminants and off-site disposal, the injection of an organic substance to stimulate the natural degradation of contaminants in groundwater, known as enhanced reductive dechlorination, or ERD, monitored natural attenuation, institutional controls, most likely being some deed restrictions and maintaining fencing. Expected duration is 5 years active and 10 years monitoring, and the cost is $5,009,611. This is a proven remedy. It's been used on operable Unit 2, is working well, and we have the ability to get this remedy up and going quickly. Next slide. So now, again, we're here for community acceptance. And I think I have different slides than you guys have at this point, because I think you combined the last two. So I'm going to use my slides. I think they pretty much say the same thing. But this is community acceptance. We're looking for comments from the public up until May 15th, 2021. If you need to view what we call the administrative record, which is the document.
We're going to pause for just a second, Coach. Carol,
Okay.
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, we had just a minute there where you were fading out, so I want to make sure that everybody understands where we are, and I wanted to let you know what slide we're on. We are on the slide that talks about how to make comments and the end of the comment period, and then the slide after this is the one for the contact information. So just wanted to let you know.
Okay. Yep. Okay. All right. Well, I will. I had two different slides at the end, but Sally has some slides up here now, so that's fine. So
Okay.
This slide just tells you how to make your comments and shows the date that the comments need to be provided by is May 15th to me. You can either mail them to me, you can email them to me, you can call me. I don't see that my phone number is on this particular slide, but you should be able to, there you go, the next slide has my phone number. So feel free to call me, mail me, or email me. And I'll be happy to respond to any comments that you might have tonight or within the next 30 days. I think that's it, Donna.
Yeah, thank you so much, Carol. I appreciate that. And I will note that you said all of those figures absolutely without a flaw when we went through a practice run with this. So I know that was
I did it way too many times today to myself. I think I've got a little fatigue going on.
We had it all on the screen, so everything's good. So now we are going to move into the question and answer portion of the meeting. It is so important that we hear from you tonight, and I have a few guidelines to help us as we transition into the question and answer session. A reminder, we are recording this meeting both as a resource to our team and to share with those who may not be able to join the meeting. The recording will be made available on our website in the coming days. Also, please be respectful of everyone participating tonight. We may need to mute the lines if there's extra background noise, but we will call on you and give you an opportunity to participate in the discussion if that happens. We do want to make sure that everyone can be heard, so we'll ask that only one person talk at a time, and we will assist with that if needed. And again, if you would just hold off, we are noting who is unmuting their line, and we will call on you to speak. If you would like to ask a question, please let us know by clicking the hand icon or the microphone icon on your screen, or press *6 if you are joining us by phone. Our tech team is noting everyone who is raising a hand or unmuting. If you're unmuted, please refrain from speaking until you are called on. If we experience a lot of background noise, we may need to mute lines. Again, that's really important. And we will call on you by either your name or the last 4 digits of the phone number you're calling from. When it is your turn to speak, we ask that you clearly state and spell your name for the court reporter. And if for some reason you're experiencing any difficulty with muting or unmuting your line, we encourage you to reach out to the DHEC contacts shown on the screen now and after the meeting tonight. So if you'll give us just a moment, get to our first people. Okay, I do show that our court reporter has raised her hand, so that usually indicates we're doing something wrong. So Ms. Richardson, you want to go ahead and let us know, did you have a question?
I just wanted to ask if there is, for some reason on my end, a drop in audio with a question. How do you want me to just raise my hand at that point to let you know that I'm not hearing whoever is speaking? I know how important it is for DHEC to have a good record, and I want to provide that. I just want to know how you would like me to proceed if I don't hear the audio from the question or the comment. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for raising that. Don't worry about that. We do have a backup mechanism in place. We have a recording, so I think that we will be fine. But thank you so much for clarifying that for us. Again, if anyone who is joining us tonight, if you have any questions about the presentation that you have seen, or about anything else that's going on with the AVX site or the history at the AVX site, we do have DHEC staff on the line tonight to be able to answer those questions. Please feel free to raise your hand. Use the icon on your the team screen, or unmute your line. Or if you're joining us by phone, you can indicate by pressing *6 that you would like to make a comment. I do know that we had some questions that were submitted during registration on the registration forms, and I do believe that Carol did try and touch base with those individuals earlier today to answer those questions. So apparently she did a very good job. But we do want to encourage you to, if you have another question, if something else that you would like to ask about, we do encourage you to use this time now to do that. And this is quite unusual. We normally have at least one person who wants to ask a question. We want to make sure that we're offering ample opportunity. Since we do have a court reporter and this is a required meeting, as Carol mentioned, it's very important that we hold this meeting and that you participate, that you've had this opportunity to participate and ask any questions, specifically about the alternatives that were considered for the cleanup of OU1. As Carol said, we have, I remember I've been with the agency for quite a long time. Now we've had a very active history at the AVX site. We have had previous meetings that I know were very well attended, where we were able to share quite a bit of information with local residents, and we're grateful for that. And we want to continue having those lines of communication open for anyone to get in touch with us if you have any questions. We've also updated our AVX website, and that web address is at the bottom of the screen now. We have updated the information there to address this proposed plan. It details the remedies that were looked at. It also includes many of the documents that Carol spoke about tonight. They are available right there through our webpage. They are rather large, so it might take you a minute to download them or to access them, but we hope that by making them a little more easier to access, that you'll be able to do that from your home at your convenience. We've also updated our community engagement page on the AVX website. And we did keep a lot of the information. We had a lot of historical information for our activities at the site, our cleanup activities, not only from the Bureau of Land and Waste Management, but from DHEC's Bureau of Water and Bureau of Air Quality as well. Those documents are still available on that page. If you're interested in just learning more about what has gone on at the site, there's a lot of information there. I don't think that you will have any trouble being able to get a good summary of what has occurred there, how DHEC has been involved over the past several decades. So again, I'm running out of things to talk about, but if somebody else has a comment, please unmute your line or raise your hand.
number is that to the left of Donna?
Christy, are we seeing any hands or anyone unmuting that I'm not seeing?
No, Donna, I don't see anybody looking to participate. So this might be a good time to remind everybody that that comment period is open until May 15th.
Yep, and thank you again for putting that that slide back up with the information about how to comment. Again, you can send your comments by mail or email directly to Carol Crooks. And you can do that through May 15th. So if no one else has any comments, no one would like to speak on the record, we will continue on. We want to honor everyone's time tonight. We know this is an evening time and we're pressing into your family time. So again, we will be accepting comments through May 15th, and we very much want to stay connected with you. Please reach out to us by phone or mail or email if you have questions after tonight, or if you are interested in discussing specific aspects of the AVX site. We will be happy to talk with you more about that. It might be best to contact Carol directly, and then if she cannot answer your question, then we will she'll be able to put you in touch with someone who can. On behalf of DHEC, I would again like to thank you for your participation this evening. Please protect yourself and others by following local, state, and federal guidelines to minimize the spread of COVID-19, and please be sure to get vaccinated when you are able to. Thank you again for joining us, and good night. You may disconnect from the call at this time.